It is a pleasure to be here presenting this section organized by the Animal Physiology Group and having as chairs my colleagues Helga and Marcus. Today, I'll be talking about the relationships of stress during fecal weaning with productive performance in beef cattle. This is a team effort, and I'm very glad to have this group of collaborators helping to deliver this study. So, I'll be going through a typical scientific outline, and the ultimate mission today is to deliver a message that there's a lot more to see beyond a cow pie when you see that in the pasture. There's some interesting physiological clues that can be derived from that. So, cattle weaning is a process of separating cow and calf, and that can be done in different ways. The natural weaning, which would happen like the wild, occurs over a longer period, and there is still a bond between cow and calf, even that the cow is nursing a second calf. It's not the case of commercial operations, but Mother Nature has a way to look at that matter. Another approach in commercial settings would be the nose claps. So there's an emerging methodology that's becoming more and more popular. And a third approach would be the fence line, which is adopted by the commercial producers, and basically you have cows on one side, calf another one, and then at some point they'll be losing interest on each other. And then one of the most common methods is the coral weaning, where the calves are segregated completely from the cows and they are there dealing with that on their own. And this is interesting and is a widely adopted methodology. It is stressful for the cow, stressful for the calf, impacts performance. Animals can lose a lot of weight. You can see how noisy they can be. The background here. Animals, they might be predisposed to disease. So one example is the necrotic laryngitis, because the animals might be bowing so much that they hurt the vocal cords and they get sick. And this can further aggravate in situations where the weaning happens when the seasons are changing, as it is the case in Canada, when the calving happens in the spring and then the weaning happens in the fall, and a lot of times in the fall our ground is already covered with snow. So one of the possible ways for assessing the stress caused by coral weaning is the assessment of fecal cortisol metabolites. So we all know how important it is the HPA axis in modulating the energy metabolism of the animal, with major control on muscle, fat tissue, gastrointestinal tract metabolism, immune system, and so on. However, assessing the levels of cortisol can be hard. In the bloodstream, the effects of handling can just change completely the levels, and that information can be misleading. So one way to overcome that problem is to work with fecal cortisol metabolites. The cortisol metabolites that you measure, they correspond to what's going on to the animal 12 hours ago. This is a good example here, first published by Palm in 2000, where they subject cows to a ride in a truck, and then they check the effects of that 12 hours later in the levels of cortisol metabolites in the feces. And we have been following up that study with some other studies on the relationships of fecal cortisol metabolites and productive performance. And so with that, our hypothesis is that the imbalance caused by coral weaning in calves could be assessed via fecal cortisol metabolites dosage, given the associations of FCM with stress. Moreover, associations of FCM and production may occur at different time periods. So, with that, our objectives were to verify the association of FCM levels with stress caused by coral weaning, and check the associations of FCM with biometrics productivity at short and long-term periods. In order to do that, we housed 146 crossbred calves at the Laura Beef Research Center at the University of Guelph, and those animals are mainly crosses of Simmental, Angus, Piemontese, among other breeds. The animals are born between March 23rd and June 14th, so it's about 83 days calving season. and they're born in a freestyle barn, and then they're moved to a pasture where they're over a rotational grazing over the summer and fall, and then they're weaned in November, and from there they're kept in pens and fed a corn-based silage diet, and then the males, the steers, they're processed at 14 months old. In terms of husbandry data, we knew their gender, their breed composition, their birth weight and date, the weaning weight, and then the 72 hours post-weaning weight. So we could do that at weaning and then 3 days later. In terms of fecal cortisol metabolites determination, we collect the samples by rectal grab upon restraining the animals in a squeeze chute, and then we sample the animals at weaning and then 72 hours later. We prepare all the samples and we ship them to our colleague, to our collaborator, Dr. Palm in Austria, who did the determinations in his lab. And in terms of data collected at the abattoir, we collect the rib by area, the rib fat thickness of the carcass, and then we did a fragment of the carcass dissection to infer about the body composition according to the methodology by Hanks and Hove from 1946, and then we could assess the amounts of lean, bone, and fat, and then the fat, the three different components, the subcutaneous, the internal, and the intermuscle. In terms of meat quality, we did an assessment of shear force with steaks aged for 7, 14, and 21 days. For statistical analysis, we have a few fecal cortisol metabolites variables. So the FCM at weaning, it is our baseline because that corresponds to what's going on 12 hours before, when the calf was just in peace in the field with her mom. And then the stress response collected 72 hours later. And for handling these two variables, we want to know how much it changed from one situation to another. So then we did just the subtraction from post-weaning to weaning. However, we realized that there's the baselines of the animals vary quite a bit. So then we find wiser to do the ratio. So then we work with the ratio of the post-weaning over the weaning fecal cortisol metabolites. And we did the analysis for validating our stress model. So we check fecal cortisol metabolites and body weight and weaning at weaning and then also at 72 hours later. We did a Pearson correlation analysis and also a multiple linear regression. For the regression analysis, we start with a very robust model, including all the variables there for different classes, and then from there we derive the model that we consider the most suitable model for this study, including these variables outlined here at the bottom. So, did our stress model work? Oh yes, it worked very well. We observed over a two times fold increase in fecal cortisol metabolites when you compare the post-weaning with the weaning sample. And also we observed that the animals at weaning, in comparison to the post-weaning, they lost about 8 kilos, which is a lot. Over that 3 days, the animals should be putting over or close to 1 kilo, and instead they lost 8 kilos. So that's a big loss in terms of performance. And when you look at our correlations with fecal cortisol metabolites, you could observe some interassociations between lean and rib fat. So that's assessment that was done at weaning, and then that was associated with assessments done after slaughter, so almost a year later. And the same applies to shear force. There are some associations there, with the strong associations with the steaks aged for 14 days. And also we found association between fecal cortisol metabolites and weaning age. And that's expected because our calving season was about 83 days. So there is a big range in age of the animals, and then they are weaned all at the same time. So there are a lot of difference in age at that point. So when you look to our regression analysis, we found some interesting relationships here. It seems that weaning weight was positively associated with fecal cortisol metabolites, which suggests that rapid growth is associated with a faster or stronger stress response. It seems that the heifers might be more affected by the steers in the situation of the weaning, although that deserves some more research because they're not there in terms of statistical significance. And interestingly, the assessments done at harvest, so about a year later after the weaning, we could see that animals that have higher fecal cortisol metabolites, they have less lean yield, which is not desirable because is less a lower amount of lean tissue. They also have more cover fat, and they seem to have also tougher steaks. So it's interesting that you might be able to realize that about a year before slaughtering the animals. So that might be a good strategy for husbandry practice, for management, or for adding value to the animals, and so on, for branding. So there's a lot of interesting clues that can be derived from these results. And I want to wrap up this presentation, outline some other facts of the research project that I have been doing on phenotyping. And it seems that exposing the animals to a stressful situation as part of the husbandry practice and collecting those phenotypes can be the way to go. While our colleagues working with genomics says that in the era of genomics, phenotyping is king, I would say that for doing phenotype, the disruption of homeostasis is king to achieve a good phenotypes. And why I say that, this study that I just presented supports that. And some other studies that we did in the past, also with fecal cortisol metabolites, where we expose animals to trucking and then to jugular catheterization. That's the stress caused by those was very good to separate animals in terms of feed efficiency, separate high efficiency to low efficiency animals. And also the research that have been developed on bovine cardiology also supports that. We did an evaluation of the heart rate throughout the breathing soundness evaluation of the bulls, which is a procedure where the bull is exposed to ultrasound, blood collection, palpation of the testes, internal palpation to the rectum, probing with electroejaculator. And what to learn from that? We learn that the most invasive procedure, so would be the probing, the jugular blood collection, the rectal palpation, they result in a better predictability of feed efficient animals. So it seems that you need to put animals against the wall, and then from there they tell you, oh yes, I am, it reveals the phenotypes more clearly. So in conclusion, crural weaning is a stressful practice affecting calf production performance. The disruption caused by the crural weaning might serve to infer on future life performance related to carcass and meat quality. And most important, these finds reinforce the value of phenotyping under disruptive farm practice to infer on complex traits. So it is an interesting study on applied physiology and using as resources the regular practice that you have in the farm, which really helps in terms of technology adoption at some point. And with that, I'd like to acknowledge these funding agencies for their support. And also, please, you're more than welcome to contact me through any of these channels here. Unfortunately, I'll not be available for questions and answers today due to some other duties that I had to deal with. And please enjoy your conference, and I hope to see you in person in Porto next year. Take care.